Hey folks, I'm JC from One Shot Adventures, and I don't know about you, but I'm in the mood for horror. And so today I'm going to talk about one of my favorite types of horror adventures, what makes a great haunted house adventure. So you can either run one for your friends, or you can design your own creepy haunted house masterpiece. Now, haunted houses are just perfect for RPGs. They're contained, they're full of surprises and traps and backstory, and they work in almost any genre. Like some of my favorite adventures of all time are haunted houses, like Call of Cthulhu's The Haunting, or Dungeons & Dragons' Sinister Secret of Saltmarsh, or even in science fiction like the Alien RPG's Chariot of the Gods. All that said, haunted houses can be tricky to run. If you're not careful, your haunted house might play out like an undercooked dungeon with a worse layout and a slower pace, and your players just would go room to room without really a sense of why anything matters. In comparison to dungeons, which are actually pretty easy to run in RPGs, haunted houses have their own unique challenges. First, haunted houses are entirely open-ended. Unlike a dungeon, which can have linear flows with choke points and multiple pathways, haunted houses are not linear at all. A house's entrance is the same as its exit, and your players fully understand how to explore a house already. They'll expect things like kitchens and bathrooms and bedrooms, which means there can be fewer locational surprises. And for haunted houses to really feel right, they need to be slower paced. If your house forces the players to fight room by room, like fighting skeletons and goblins, it's just not going to feel like a haunted house. And the things that work in horror movies, like jump scares and tight camera angles and fake outs, are just notoriously difficult, if not impossible, to pull off at the table. So these add up to a lot of challenges for GMs who want to run a cool haunted house for their friends. But recently, I've thought a lot about haunted houses, so I'm going to give you some tips today on how to run a great one. Number one, the house's history is everything. Fundamental to a great haunted house is a deep, often intricate backstory. Unlike a dungeon where it pretty much doesn't matter like who built it, they could all be built by long-forgotten sorcerers with unclear motivations, and it's just fine, your players don't usually care. But haunted houses need to have backstories for your players to care. They need to have their foundations built by the stories and the personalities that lived in the house as it became haunted and before the PCs walk in. Like everything in the house should tie back to the event that made it haunted. Like houses shouldn't just have bedrooms, but you should know who lived in each bedroom. Their portraits should be on the wall, and there should be journals, and just make sure as you build the house that you kind of understand the story of what happened there and who lived there. I find that physical items are often the best way to reinforce the history of a house, and it's a fun way for players to discover what happened. Set up the existence of a few special items early on in the adventure, so when they're found by the players, it immediately creates history and tension. So for example, if an NPC tells the PCs at the beginning of the adventure,
"All I heard was screaming, and as I ran from the house, the last thing I saw was an old doll with golden hair."
Well, your players are going to be on edge until they finally find that doll. And then of course you need to have a story of why that doll matters and why they might be a little creeped out by it. Flavorful but also useless items often help add to the backstory of the house too. For example, in my adventure that I wrote, Thrusher Manor, and you can watch an overview of it right up here, I placed these convict-style placards throughout the house. Ignorant and stupid, vile backstabber, sinful and treasonous, etc. And while these were not key to the plot of the adventure, when the players found them, it immediately gave them a sense that the house's prior inhabitants were just awful people who liked making fun of each other, like they hung signs on each other. I also recently talked to a GM who loved haunted houses, and she said one of her favorite techniques was planting a few mirrors in the house. So when the PCs walked past them, they would get glimpses of what had happened in the past in that room with the mirror in it. I thought that was really cool. You should totally do that too. Number two, start the adventure before the PCs arrive at the house. Because history is so important to a great haunted house adventure, you should actually start the adventure somewhere else. This gives you the opportunity to establish the history of your house before the players arrive. Add a scene or two at the beginning of the adventure where you can spread spooky rumors about the house and build expectations that you should subvert later. For example, you could have somebody at the local bar describe the time that their uncle visited the house.
Yeah, my Uncle Greg went into that house once. Went running clear out because he said he found a dead body in the basement with its eyes burned out.
Number 3, use real floor plans. Okay, so this tip is mostly for the people who are going to write their own haunted house adventure. But if you are, remember that it's key to a haunted house that it actually feels like a house. It shouldn't feel like a dungeon made out of wood with some old carpet in it. And fortunately, there's a lot of floor plans of old houses on the internet. Just grab one of them and use it, and then your house will instantly feel like a lived-in real place. It's actually interesting. Floor plans and architecture has evolved a lot over the last few centuries, so if you go grab an old floor plan, it will still feel a little bit alien to players, like things will not quite be where people from today's day and era expect. And that's a good thing because your haunted house will still feel familiar, but also a little bit off. So go raid the internet archives and find some cool old floor plans and you won't regret it. Also, remember that it's okay in a haunted house if ordinary rooms outnumber the exciting ones. I think a good haunted house only has about a third of the rooms deeply tie into the horrible events that curse the place. What's important is you don't feel like you have to stock every single room in the house with something to surprise your players. Like sometimes a bedroom can just be a bedroom and that's fine. Number 4, always bring an NPC or 2. In the movies, by the time the heroes arrive at the haunted house, it's already terrorized or murdered some poor locals. And you've usually seen what's happened in the very first scene of the movie, like before the heroes get involved. You see what happens to the family, or you see somebody get murdered. You kind of get a sense of why the house is haunted. However, in RPGs, which mostly focus on the players, there's less of an opportunity to show a house at its most hellish moment. So that's where NPCs come in handy. NPCs serve triple duty in haunted house adventures. First, they're great for imparting some of the house's history to the players.
Oi guys, check it out. It's a painting of Bloody Anne, the vampire queen herself, and her hellhound. Yeah, the hellhound does look cuter than I expected, I admit that. But don't let it fool you. He can breathe fire and his ears smell like yeast.
Second, NPCs can drive the plot forward in a natural way when the PCs miss clues or overlook details in the house that are important to the mystery.
Hey guys, I found this creepy book in the library and it looks important. I bet it has family secrets in it.
Finally, NPCs can and should fall victim to the house's evil machinations long before the PCs get into its crosshairs. Like, if you hear Hobo Billy getting murdered in the basement by a giant spider,
Not spiders!
well, that's far more effective than just attacking your PCs with one at first. When I wrote my adventure, Thresher Manor, I made sure that all of the NPCs in it are utterly expendable after like the first third of the adventure. And so far I've only ever seen 1 or 2 actually survive it. And that works great. It feels like there's a higher body count than there really is, and it gives you as a GM more tools to make the house seem evil and out to get people. You know, thinking about this a little bit, I'm gonna lay down a GM challenge. You know how I said in the movies, they almost always start with the scene of the family getting terrorized by the house and they rush out, and then here come the heroes, the investigators, to figure out what's gone on with this house. Well, I think it'd be cool if you started your haunted house adventure letting your players play that family. And yeah, they're all totally expendable and they're all gonna get messed up and lose their sanity, if not their lives. But then you could do a hard cut and then your players take over the investigators, kind of knowing what that house is up to. I think that'd be a cool thing to try. If you've done something like that, let me know in the comments below. I might do that next. Number 5, embrace the sandbox and give your players multiple motivations. Because of the open layout of most houses, it's difficult to plan clear beginnings, middles, and endings to a haunted house. You just never know what's going to happen as the players roam around. And while survive until dawn works fine in horror movies, that kind of simple objective will really just push your players to act like an antelope herd. They'll just roam from room to room and stick together in a pack at all times. And this kind of behavior is going to make the creepiness and horror that you need for a haunted house much harder. It's just really hard to pick people off in herds, which is really key to a great haunted house adventure. So instead, what you want to do is give each PC their own custom objective on top of the larger goal. Maybe one PC wants to prove that ghosts are real. Another one is looking for a hidden treasure that's said to be in the house's basement. And a third, well, just wants to romance the cheerleader and get her alone someplace. Then you scatter clues and history and horrific events into these objectives and spread them out throughout the house. This kind of arrangement virtually guarantees that your players will separate from each other at certain points of the adventure, even if it's just for a room or two, which is going to better enable you to kind of terrorize them as they go. There's already a great example of an adventure that does this. Aliens, Chariot of the Gods, and also its sequels like Heart of Darkness, does an amazing job of giving the PCs very different, often conflicting motivations. And you can easily add this to any adventure. Like in Call of Cthulhu's The Haunting, one time I ran that and I told one player that he was an antique dealer who was there to catalog all of the antique beds in the place so that he can win them at auction later. And this caused that player to kind of make sure he hit every bedroom in the house, and at some point he just kind of decided when the other players wanted to go in the basement, he knew he was missing the master bedroom and he went off alone, and well, that worked out great.
The bed just moved.
And that's everything I know about haunted house adventures. But if you like my thinking, don't forget to check out my free adventure Thrusher Manor, which you can download on my blog, and it includes lots of pre-generated characters, virtual tabletop assets, and cool handouts, just to make GMs' lives that much easier. It's available for Call of Cthulhu, old school role-playing / D&D, and also GURPS. And if you have a favorite haunted house adventure, let me know in the comments below what it is. I'd love to check it out if I haven't already. And if you want to see more videos like this, don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel. It's okay if you don't, but I do know a ghost that gets unhappy about it, and he's willing to drop chandeliers on people's heads when they don't click those buttons. Well, until next time, I'm JC. And just remember,